Today we're starting section 4.4. We are actually going to do only about half of 4.4. The first half of 4.4 is on the Pythagorean theorem. The second half is on the distance formula. So you can see on the board we're doing distance formula tomorrow, Pythagorean theorem today. Any questions before we get moving? All right. Here you go. You need to write all of this down. This is everything you need to know about the Pythagorean theorem. So I'll give you a few minutes. I would definitely recommend you write down both forms. This is with the names of the parts of the triangle. This is with the letters. This one makes more sense when you're learning it. However, this one goes right along with your homework because they're not labeled like leg, leg, hypotenuse. They're labeled A, B, and C. So make sure you get both of these down. And then when you're all done writing, we'll talk a little bit more about what this means. So the Pythagorean theorem is probably one of the most popular things you'll actually learn in this class. This might be something you've heard before you got in here. It's most commonly said as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But this is what it means. It only works for right triangles. If you have a right triangle, the square of the lengths of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the legs. So, if you have this triangle, the two sides that make up the right angle, we call those legs. Those are the shorter two. If you take the legs and you square them, and you add them together, that should equal the same thing as when you square the hypotenuse. Alright, so you could write it either way. Leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. Or hypotenuse squared equals leg squared plus leg squared. Or you can call the legs A and B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Or some people write it C squared equals A squared plus B squared. It's just really up to you. As long as you put them equal, it doesn't matter the order. The main thing and the biggest mistake that I see is people do not put the hypotenuse by itself. Hypotenuse is always C squared. Alright, hypotenuse goes there. And you know it's the hypotenuse because it's the one across from the right angle. Any questions so far? Would you like to learn an interesting fact about the Pythagorean theorem? You're supposed to say, yeah, always. Show us. All right, is everyone done writing or you need a little more time? Have you guys seen The Wizard of Oz?
Yeah.
Okay, did you know that he tries to say the Pythagorean theorem when he gets his brain, the scarecrow, but he messes it up? So I'm going to play it, see if you can catch his mistake. So what does he say wrong?
Why, anybody can have a brain. That's a very mediocre commodity. Every pusillanimous creature that crawls on the earth or slinks through slimy seas has a brain. Back where I come from, we have universities, seats of great learning, where men go to become great thinkers. And when they come out, they think deep thoughts, and with no more brains than you have. But they have one thing you haven't got, a diploma. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Universitatis Comitiatum e Pluribus Unum, I hereby confer upon you the honorary degree of Ph.D. Ph.D.? That's Doctor of Thinkology. Sum of the square roots of any two sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side. Oh, John, I've got a brain. How can I ever thank you enough? Well, you can't. As for you, my fine friend, you're a victim.
Did anyone catch the mistake? You're right. What did he say? Instead of squaring the sides, what did he do? He took the square root of the sides. So you are now smarter than the scarecrow, even after he has a brain. How does that feel? So yes, next time you're watching The Wizard of Oz, you can show off to your family and friends and tell them that the scarecrow was wrong. But Scarecrow aside, any questions on what's on the board? All right, we have 6 examples for today, and then you guys can start on your homework. Here are the first 3. You do not need to write the stuff that's up top. You can start with 1, 2, and 3, draw the triangles. I will read you the top, though, as we're going. Remember, you can use the formula that's written up there with the parts of the triangle. Or I think actually the easier way is just a squared plus b squared equals c squared, as long as you remember that the c is the hypotenuse. All right, now we need to decide what's A, what's B, what's C. What do you guys think? What's the 10? It can be A or B. I'm just going to put it as A. I usually go from biggest to smallest, but it really doesn't matter. You could make the 10 the A, you could make the B, the 10 the B, vice versa, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as A and B are the 10 and the 24. C is locked in. The hypotenuse also always has to be the one that's on its own. So plug in 10 for one of them, plug in 24 for the other, leave the C as a C, and then we're going to see if we can figure this out. If you do not have a calculator, now would be the time to get one. So we need to start doing some math. What is 10 squared? This is an easy one, you know this. 100, good. What is 24 squared? 576. That's going to equal c squared. What do I get when I add those together? 676, good. Equals c squared. Now, I don't want to know what c squared is. I want to know what c is. So does anyone know the opposite of squaring a number? We spent a whole week talking about it. We're going to take the square root of the number. So we need to take the square root of 676. It is 26. Good. Now, if you do not know how to work the square root button on the calculator, we need to figure that out. If you're borrowing one of mine, you hit second, and then that x squared button, that'll get your square root button going. And then you type in 676. If you have a different calculator and you're unsure, let me know. Or if you don't want to use a calculator at all, you can do factor trees for all of these. I wouldn't recommend it. It didn't appear to be your favorite thing in the world last week. So you want to hit second, x squared, and then type in the number. Anyone else need help with the calculator? Alright, let's set up number 2. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. What goes where? Good. The 7s have to go in for the a and the b. So 7 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared. Now, if you get real good with the calculator, you can type this all in at once. 7 squared plus 7 squared. And get that whole side simplified. Or you can just do it step by step. You get 49 plus 49 equals c squared. What is 49 plus 49? 98 equals c squared. All right, I'm going to pause here so you can catch up if you're a little behind. If you're not behind, go ahead and type that into the calculator. You are allowed to just use decimals today when you need to. Some teachers require you do a factor tree like last week. I think we practiced that enough last week. I'm ready to just use the calculator if you guys are okay with that. But again, I will accept answers in the simplified form using a factor tree, or just type it in and round to the nearest tenth. So when you type in 98, and you take the square root, 9.89. So if I have an 8, 9, what would that round to if I just wanted one number after the decimal? 0.89. So yeah, the 9 would make the 8 go up, so you'd get 9.9. That's your C. Any questions on how to use a calculator, how to set this up, or how to round? Again, just one number after the decimal is okay by me. But round, don't just drop it. Don't just make it like 9.8. That doesn't work. Alright. Let's set up number 3. So again, I always start with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then what? Good. I heard some mumbles. I just went with the loudest mumble I heard. 14 squared plus 9 squared. If you have 9 squared plus 14 squared, are you going to get it wrong? No. It's interchangeable. It doesn't really matter. As long as the c squared stays c squared. What is 14 squared? 196 plus, that one's going to be 81, equals c squared. What do you get when you add those together? What? 277 equals c squared. Alright, I don't want c squared though, I want c, so I need to take the square root of both sides. That'll get c by itself. 16 point what? 16.6. What comes after the 6? 16.64. So the 4 makes the 6 stay the same. 16.6 is my answer. So what were we finding in all of these? The C. The C is the hypotenuse. It's the longest side. Now, I think it's a really good idea to check that it makes sense. Does it make sense that 26 is the longest side if the other two are 10 and 24? Yeah. If you're coming up with like 5.6 as your hypotenuse and the other two sides are both longer than that, you made a mistake. All right, you set it up wrong. So make sure that when you're finding C, the answer you get is bigger than both of the legs, or else you got to go back and change some things. All right, next we're going to talk about how to find the legs. It's a little more challenging. There's one extra step, but do you guys have any questions on this? All right, here you go. So I'll give you a minute to write these down. Then we'll start going through examples. All right, so for all of these, what am I going to start with? What's the theorem? I was looking for a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Good, but you guys were one step ahead of me. Where does the 11 go? In the front. That's going to be our a squared. What do I put for b squared? Just b squared. I don't know what b is. That's the missing one. And then what goes in for the c? 23. Good. If you do not put the longest side as your c, you are going to get this wrong. So make sure your hypotenuse is always your c. It's key. Hey, that rhymes. All right, what is 11 squared? 121 plus b squared equals, what's 23 squared? 529. All right, now here's where we get our extra step, because I'm trying to get b by itself, which means I need to get b squared by itself, which means what do I need to move? The 121. Right now it's being added. What's the opposite of adding 121? So I'm going to subtract 121 from both sides. So b squared equals 408. How do I find out what just b equals? Divide. It looks sort of like the division symbol, like the box back from your long division days. Yeah, we are actually taking the square root of both sides. So, square root of 408 is what? 20 point, what does it look like? 0.19? So it would round to 2. Good, 20.2. That's for number 4. Sorry, I'm running out of space. I guess I should technically put the arrow down to there. That's our B. Alright, but that is the answer to number 4. What are your questions? Alright, let's start number 5. How can I start 5? Okay, good. Equals C squared. A squared is going to stay A squared. What's going in for B? 8.4 and 11.9. Good. What is 8.4 squared? What? 70.56? Good. Now, students are sometimes tempted to round in the middle of the problem. Don't round to the very end. Okay, so don't make this 70.6. That'll mess you up down the road. Okay, so just leave it as it is until you get to the end. What's 11.9 squared? 0.61? Okay, good. Now, how do I get that A squared part by itself? Subtract. I'm going to subtract 70.56 from both sides. So I get A squared equals okay, what's the last step on this one? Take the square root of both sides. So I'll write it up top where you guys can see it. What do you get for your A? 8.42. So that'll just round to 8.4. Everyone agree? Great. Sorry, it's filling up there. Let me clear us a space. All right, how should I start number 6? Okay, good. Same old formula. What's my A squared part? Just A squared, good. What goes in for B? 24 squared. What goes in for C? 26 squared, good. So we have A squared plus, what's 24 squared? 576 equals, what's 26 squared? 676. Ooh, this is going to be a nice one. Hold on one second. Alright, so we're going to subtract 576 from both sides. So we have A squared equals 100. So what's the answer? 10. Good. When you take the square root of both sides, the square root of 100 is 10. So our A equals 10. Now I'm going to go back and make sure that this makes sense. If any of these answers are larger than the hypotenuse, I made a mistake. So, okay, it makes sense that one of the legs is about 20. Makes sense that it's about 8. Makes sense that it's 10. Okay? If we would get a number like 30-something over here, that means we set it up wrong. Okay? So always make sure you're asking yourself, does your answer make sense? Or, if you get a negative in this step before you take the square root, that's also another sign that you set it up wrong. So just be careful on those. Any questions on this? So you can see that 11, 12, 13, those are about the distance formula. We haven't learned the distance formula yet, so you can actually stop when you get to number 10. I want to do 1 through 4 together. You'll see why, because number 4 isn't really one you know how to do yet. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you'll go up to 10 on your own. All right, so number 1 says, in a right triangle, the sides that form the right angle are called the... Look at the picture you drew in the beginning of your notes. They're called the what? The legs. Good. The legs are the smaller two. Those are the ones that form the right angle. A few of you are trying to give me the answer for number 2. Number 2 says in a right triangle, the side opposite the right angle is called the... That's hypotenuse. Good. I won't take off for spelling, but try your best. All right, number 3. In a right triangle, the square of the length of the blank is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the blank. It's straight from the definition you wrote down. The square of the blank is equal to the sum of the square of the blank. The legs is the second one. That's the one where you're taking the sum. So the sum of the legs is equal to what? Hypotenuse. Good. So the first blank is hypotenuse. The second blank is legs. Sorry, I ran out of space. That's the E right there. Sorry, I wrote legs a little big. So yeah, hypotenuse is the first blank. Second blank is legs. We know it has to go that way because they talk about the sum. The one that you're doing the sum of is the legs, so legs has to go second. You can't have the sum of one number, hypotenuse, so. There you go, hypotenuse first, then legs. All right, and then number 4 is the one that you don't know. It's saying if you have these 2 points, A and B, and they're points on the coordinate plane, then the blank between A and B is that formula you see right there. The square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. That's what we're doing tomorrow. You can see on the board that that is called the distance formula. So that will give you the distance between those 2 points. And again, don't feel like that's something you should already know. That's something we'll cover tomorrow. If you want to preview, you can go ahead and try 11, 12, 13, or you can just stop when you get to 10. You are not going to be required to do 11, 12, 13 from this worksheet. You're getting a whole new worksheet tomorrow. So if you want to cross them out, that's totally fine. Any questions before I let you loose on your homework?